Hey Michigan fans, Keith here from Lewis Jewelers, and we are super excited to be able to cheer on all the student athletes that will be on the field and the courts this season. But just like Michigan sports, special moments have not been canceled. Come into Lewis Jewelers or visit lewisjewelers.com so our team can help you celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, or your just because moments. Go Blue!
Lewis Jewelers, celebrate the moments.
Welcome to the Wolverine.com podcast. This is the Maize and Blue Breakdown. I am Clayton Sayfie with my co-host, Austin Fox. We're both from the Wolverine.com, of course. Head over to the Wolverine.com right now. If you're not a subscriber, you can get 2 months of our premium content for free. Just put in that promo code BLUE60 for 60 days for free. Austin, man, I mean, we are in single digits away from Michigan's opener. Felt like it was never going to come. It's feeling closer and closer. It's still kind of surreal in a way, but I think on Monday morning it's going to hit us that it's game week and everything's kind of back to normal. And then you just pray they can get through this thing.
Yep, only 9 days away. It's hard to believe we're that close, but we finally have a kickoff time set for that opener at Minnesota. It's going to be a 7:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff on the 24th, so it's good that it's finally this close. I didn't know if we'd get to this point, but like you said, it's hard to believe that it's almost here, and we're going to learn a lot about this Michigan team right off the bat, I think, when they play at Minnesota, because this is a pretty good Golden Gopher team. So if Michigan's able to get it done on the 24th, man, I think that would be a really, really good win for this program.
Let's say they handle them, they win by 10 plus. Do your expectations just go way up for this team? I think any win at Minnesota, who's expected to be a good team, would be massive. But if they win by 10, 14 points, we're looking at a team where now then the Michigan fan base gets their hopes up, which is kind of a blessing and a curse in a way. But we're looking at a team that maybe then could blow out Michigan State the next week. And then you start looking ahead at some of the bigger games a couple weeks down the road, Wisconsin, and things like that. What would your expectations be for Michigan if they do handle Minnesota next week?
I hate to overreact to one game or put too much stock into one game, but to be honest, yeah, my expectations would go up for this year. I think that would be a really, really good sign if this Michigan team handles Minnesota, because this is a Minnesota team who won 11 games last year and brings back a ton of key players on both sides of the ball. So my expectations would go up for this Michigan team, especially if Joe Milton plays well and it turns what I had projected a 6-3 team into a 7-2 team, or potentially 8-1. I don't think that would be out of the question, especially if, again, Joe Milton plays well in that opener.
Yeah. So like you said, we're going to learn a ton on October 24th, just 9 days away here as we're recording on Thursday. My next question on that would be, can you picture this game? Because I was thinking about this. Can you really picture Joe Milton at quarterback? They got the white unis. It's going to be a weird year. You're going to have Jim Harbaugh most likely wearing a mask on the sideline. It's going to look weird. It's going to look a lot different. A revamped offensive line, defense with some new pieces in there, offense with guys starting like Giles Jackson, Mike Sainristil, no Nico Collins, none of those receivers we've seen for the last few years. It's going to look different. And it's been so long since we've had Michigan football. I'm almost having a hard time picturing what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I am too. I've thought about it a lot, and I could see it going either way in a lot of scenarios playing out. I could see Michigan playing really well and winning, and I could see Minnesota playing well and winning. I think it's going to look a lot like that 2015 Halloween game at Minnesota in terms of how that one played out, and I think this one is going to come down to the wire. I don't know if it'll be a goal line stand like we had when Michigan beat them in Minneapolis in 2015, but I would not be surprised if this game comes down to the final possession or two.
That'd be crazy. And if it does come down to that goal line stand, then we would know exactly what this defensive line was like, because that was a dominant defensive line back in 2015, and then the next year in 2016. I know there's some question marks, especially on the interior there this year, but we would certainly then know what this D-line is made of, and it'd be a good test. I hope it doesn't come down to that. If you're, especially if you're a Michigan fan, you don't hope it comes down to that. You hope you maybe win by a touchdown or two, but we'll see what happens, and we're going to have a full preview of that game next week here on the show. Another couple top headlines before we get into our mailbag, which was great from our subscribers at thewolverine.com. A ton of really good questions this week. So Duncan Robinson's run is over with the Miami Heat. Fun to watch. incredible that he's at this point where game 5 he absolutely took over, scored 26 points, hit 7 threes on 13 attempts from long range. Just an incredible run for Duncan Robinson. He's going to get paid. He's going to be one of these top shooters in the NBA for years to come here. Fun to watch here over the last few months.
It really was, and his story has been told over and over, but it's downright incredible the way that played out when considering he started at Division III Williams and then transferred to Michigan, and then obviously now with the Miami Heat in the NBA, he's the only player in basketball history to start in a national title in college and an NBA Finals after coming from a Division III school, and I don't think we'll ever see that again from another player. It was amazing how he took over games from deep. We saw him do it at times at Michigan, but it's not like he was a dominant player or anything at Michigan. So props to him and props to Juwan Howard in that Miami Heat team because he played a factor in building that culture as well. So that was really cool to see. And like you said, I think we're going to see Duncan Robinson in another NBA Finals in the future.
It is crazy. Yeah, I mean, no one will go D3 national championship game, D1 national championship game, NBA Finals, especially being a starter in the NBA final. And you wouldn't think that being not a starter in college at the end would translate then to being a starter in the NBA Finals just a couple years later after going undrafted. So what a story. I know, like you said, it's been told over and over and over, but I think it's worth mentioning this week here with the finals. They came up short, 6 games of the Los Angeles Lakers. So hats off to Duncan Robinson. I wanted to discuss this as well. Scoring is way up across college football. The SEC is actually the conference allowing the most points per game, over 29 points per game in that conference. And you would think it'd be the Big 12 with how much scoring has been going on there. Nick Saban was asked about that the other day. He said it's probably because of the lack of spring football. It's probably because when you're practicing on air, it's a way more easier to practice against, or you practice offense against nobody. You can run the routes. You can have a quarterback throwing to you. Defensively, you're always reacting to something, and without that live contact, without even having big groups of players working out together, it is incredibly hard to actually simulate what playing defense in a game is like. Do you think that trend will continue in the Big Ten, or do you think that maybe having some time, at least a month more than those other conferences, and in some cases 2 months, when you consider some teams started on September 5th, do you think that maybe that will kind of iron it out a little bit for the Big Ten and they'll be a little more back to normal, and that maybe the last couple months has simulated some spring football and maybe some of that reaction time and reacting that you need to play better defense? I'm interested to get your thoughts because I think the Big Ten is going to look more normal on the field than any of these other conferences.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think this trend will continue in the Big Ten, and I think we're not going to see these crazy shootouts like we've been seeing around the country, specifically in the SEC. Michigan defensive line coach Sean Newell was asked about it yesterday, and he basically said that we're going to make sure this trend doesn't continue at Michigan and throughout the Big Ten in terms of these defenses getting shredded. He said that it's an advantage for the Big Ten that they're not playing yet in that regard because they can study these other teams and figure out why these high scores are happening. I think it has to do with the fact that a lot of these teams weren't practicing and stopped practicing, and therefore they weren't practicing tackling. And when you don't practice tackling, it can have a negative effect in games, and I think we're seeing that. And the success that these offenses are having, you look around the SEC and you look at some of these crazy scores that we've seen. Alabama Ole Miss was 63-48 last Saturday, and Alabama gave up over 600 yards of offense. That's unheard of for a Nick Saban coach team. LSU's defense was shredded by Missouri in their loss and by Mississippi State in the opener. We've seen it in other games. Ole Miss has been putting up big points on everybody. Florida's defense has been getting shredded. They gave up 41 to Texas A&M last Saturday. So I don't think we'll see that trend continue in the Big Ten this season. I think that the Big Ten defensive coaches are going to figure out why it's happening around college football, and I think they're going to counter it. And I think we're going to see much, much better defensive play throughout the entire Big Ten once they do kick off here next weekend.
It's certainly going to be interesting because the Big Ten and even the Pac-12 and the MAC, when they start even a little later, they're in a totally different realm here than these teams that were in uncharted waters starting back in September. So it's going to be interesting to see actually what the trends are like. And I agree with you. And, I think it's going to be better in the Big Ten in terms of defense. Maybe week one, you hope that an inexperienced Minnesota defense gets shredded by Joe Milton, but that's an inexperienced Michigan offense. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Let's get to our mailbag, though. We got a ton of questions from subscribers at thewolverine.com. Again, you can become a member. Use that promo code BLUE60 for 2 months of our premium content for free. You can be a part of the greatest community of Michigan fans on the internet, on the Fort, our message board. Before we get to the mailbag, remind you that this podcast is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there's never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you are guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 5-star reviews. Give Josh Yoder a call today at 480-378-0498 or email Josh directly at jyoder@jfqlending.com. JFQ Lending Incorporated, equal access lender, licensed in over 40 states. www.jfqlending.com. Ton of good questions, as I mentioned. We will start with pontificate. One-word answer. Does Rayshon Benny choose Michigan, yes or no? If I have to just give one word, which I guess I violated that already, I'll say yes. I think Michigan's the leader, but I wouldn't count out teams like Penn State, Kentucky, and Michigan State, the other finalists. I think they all have a shot to get him, especially Michigan State and Kentucky being the dark horse. He is slated to make his decision on October 25th, one day after Michigan's opener. And if this is truly a Michigan State battle, it'll be quite a way to kick off Michigan State week. But what are your thoughts?
My one-word answer would be no.
Okay.
Short and to the point.
There you go. All right. Well, let's go. AR16. Who are the mods taking in the Van Halen David Lee Roth split? Van Halen or DLR? Austin?
I know nothing about this question, so I don't even know how to answer it. I don't know who David Lee Roth is or why there's some kind of split between him and this Van Halen character. So I'm just going to have to pass on this one. I was never a big Van Halen fan in the first place, so honestly, I don't even know what he's referring to.
Yeah, I don't know much about it either. I'm going to go Van Halen just since that's the band's name. So, I mean, if the guy's name's on the band, probably more important. But I think David Lee Roth was the singer. I know we're going to get blasted for this because I know a lot of people were into that. But frankly, I'm too young for that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think someone just died in the band too, so he could be referring to something with that too.
Yep, Van Halen died, one of them. So.
Oh, okay.
R.I.P. But yeah, we'll move along. We'll get blasted for that, like I said. GR Wolverine 21, who's going to be the third-string quarterback in the old throw the football through the tire drill? Who wins, and who wins if I'm in the competition? Well, GR, I mean, you'd probably win, I guess. But third-string quarterback, Dan Villari, I would guess, the true freshman, kind of an unheralded kid out of New York coming in. And, they had J.D. Johnson in the fold, who was a highly touted recruit, but he obviously had some medical reasons. He's at the university taking that scholarship spot, but he's on staff, working with the team, but not able to play. He had to medically retire. So Dan Villari there. Who's going to win throw the football through the tire drill? I don't know. Maybe Cade McNamara. I feel like I can just picture him being good at that drill, but Joe Milton would probably knock the tire over with how hard he can throw.
Yeah, it's got to be Dan Villari as your third-string quarterback by default because there are no other scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. You only have Joe Milton, Cade McNamara, and Dan Villari. Villari obviously being a freshman, so I believe this is the fewest scholarship quarterbacks Jim Harbaugh has had on a single roster during his time at Michigan. He's had as many as 6 before at one time, so again, yeah, Villari by default would be my answer for the third stringer. As for the throw the football through the tire drill, is he referring to Michigan's quarterbacks or is he referring to us?
I think Michigan's quarterbacks, and then he's throwing himself in the mix.
Okay, so I would put Joe Milton first, and then I'm going to give a dark horse answer and put GR Wolverine 21 as my next option because I've heard that he's an excellent thrower. I know some people who know him, and I've heard that he was a heck of a quarterback during his high school days. So I would put him second in that competition.
There we go. GR, Wolverine, 21. Shout out to the west side of the state. Let's move along to Franz Wagner. Not the real Franz Wagner, but the poster Franz Wagner, who's the third best poster after Hank and I. Austin?
I think he means the third worst because Hank and Franz Wagner are two of the most annoying posters we have on the fort. And that's not an exaggeration. So, but they're fun as well. So, man, we have a lot of good posters on the fort at the Wolverine. It's hard to pick just one. Michigan 1 is a heck of a poster. M Football 95 is a really good poster. We have a new guy who just signed up, and he seems like a real clown. His name is Happily Married Foxden, and I don't know what to think about this guy. So we have a guy named Luke Pohl. I think that's his real name. He's a heck of a poster. You have a lot of the regulars. M Hoops 1's a really good one. Section 6 is a good one. So there's too many to choose from. I don't think I could pick just one if I have to pick a third best.
Man, you left out Tachman. I'll go with Toch or GR Law. You got to shout out those guys as well. But I'll go with myself probably as the third best. And you called them annoying. Man, I love those guys, Franz and Hank. So shout out to them. They're 1 and 2 in my book. And then another question from Franz Wagner. Is Ben Mason the most likely to get 6 years? Quinn Nordine maybe 2. TOO, not 2 6 years. But so this is interesting because you have the free year of eligibility this year. So your 5th years could come back for a 6th year after still playing this year. You would assume Quinn Nordine possibly because he's a kicker. It's such a unique position, but at the same time, I think he's gearing up to trying to take his NFL shot. Ben Mason, who's a guy that loves the program, but he would be a 5th year next year. So, he wouldn't be the 6th year. So I think he would be the most likely guy to use that extra year, use the free year, bank it, and, come back next year because it'd only be his 5th year. So he wouldn't be staying in college for a ton of time. I think you would throw guys out there like Carlo Kemp just because he loves the program so much, but it's hard to ask guys to stick around for so long. And I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah, and it's hard to answer this question without talking to these guys personally about their future plans because you just don't know what some of these guys are thinking in regards to whether or not they're coming back. I think Quinn Nordine is likely gone after this year. I think he has the leg to kick in the NFL, and I think that's something he really wants to do. Ben Mason is a guy who could stick around for another year. You threw out Carlo Kemp's name, but that's actually the first name who came to mind for me because he's now a 2-time captain at Michigan, and it's obvious he loves it here. So my gut tells me that, yeah, I could see him coming back for a 6th year in 2021 if it comes down to that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those guys that are so all in for the program, you'd have to think that they would at least think about it, and maybe they are. And, again, they probably haven't even made a decision yet on that, considering the season hasn't even kicked off yet. So let's get to the next question. N8 Wildy, he says, can you break down the importance and expectation of having the same offensive system for 2 years in a row? I think it's huge, and it's one of the reasons why I actually think this offense is going to be better than last year. It's one of the reasons why I think this offense is going to be more explosive than last year, and that's something they're looking for. Josh Gaddis has said that. Jay Harbaugh has said that. They're looking for those explosive plays. Run plays over 8 yards, passing plays over 15 yards. They didn't have a ton of them last year. They moved the chains quite well at times, and you have to credit some of those guys for that, including Shea Patterson. I know that, it's a hot take, and, everyone likes to rip on Shea Patterson. He wasn't a great quarterback, but he did well at times, and that offense got better as the year went on. So it got better as the year went on. They moved the chains. You need some bigger plays now. And I think that's going to happen, especially with guys like Giles Jackson, Mike Sainer still. Ronnie Bell's always been steady, but those are going to be your primary weapons, and I think they can get it done in that respect. And then Joe Milton, man, I mean, if he throws some deep balls and he's able to connect on those, this is going to be an offense that's going to be tough to stop at times because you have the whole field to work with. You can finally hit on those deep balls. You got a good stable of running backs. You hope the offensive line is up to speed. And, hey, like Jim Harbaugh said, you throw a talented guy out there and you see what happens.
Yeah, so the perfect example for this question is last year and the start of last year under Josh Gaddis because it was clear those guys were learning the playbook and they really didn't have it down pat through those first few games, and it showed on the field. Michigan's offense underwhelmed against Middle Tennessee in the opener, and they only put up 24 on a bad Army team in double overtime. And then they couldn't do anything against Wisconsin on September 21st and only put up 10 points on Iowa on October 5th. And the offense really had no rhythm and couldn't get anything going. And then once they really got that playbook down and Gaddis' system down, that's when things clicked. And that's when they put up 44 on MSU late in the year and 39 on a pretty good Indiana defense in November, and 27 on the best defense in the nation in Ohio State. So it's absolutely huge having the same offensive system 2 years in a row. I don't think we're going to see those same growing pains early this year that we saw last year. And I think that it's going to be clear that these guys have a much better understanding of Josh Gaddis' system, and therefore they're going to be much further along offensively early in the year than they were at the start of last season.
And you can't, discount the fact that this team's had a longer time to prepare as well. And the coaches have talked about how much more they think the players are grasping some of the schemes and some of the things they go over on those Zoom calls, because for a while they didn't have that time on the field. So all the time they used on football was in meetings and, talking about scheme, going through things on, through virtual. So it's harder to learn. I think we all kind of know that. And everyone's kind of come to know that over this past, 6, 7, 8 months that we've been in this pandemic, but they've had more time to actually go over the offense. It's got to translate on the field, though, and I think that's what we're waiting to see. N8 Wildy, again, with the question, who wins the starting corner spot opposite of Vince Gray? Will we see a third corner rotate in like with Gray last year? If so, who? I think we will see a third corner rotate in. I think we're going to see quite a bit of rotation in that spot, and I don't think they're extremely comfortable about that spot, considering they moved over Sammy Foston from the safety spot over to corner. I'm going to give Jamon Green, I'm going to just agree with Don Brown and go by what we know, that he was the leader in the clubhouse last week to earn that job, but I think we are going to see a ton of rotation, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's another name like a DJ Turner or Jalen Perry or even Sammy Foston by the end of the year, getting the bulk of those snaps opposite of Vince Gray. But they said Vince Gray is really coming on as a leader in that cornerback room. And, they're excited about him as that starting corner, and he's already locked up that job.
Yeah, I've been riding the DJ Turner bandwagon all along as that starter opposite Vince Gray, but I'm starting to think that we will see more of a rotation because the Michigan defensive coaches have shown a tendency to do that in the past, specifically with David Long and Brandon Watson in 2018. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that again with guys like the guys that you mentioned, Jalen Perry and Turner and Jamon Green, who Don Brown did call the leader. So with that being said, I think it's going to be still a very solid position. And honestly, I'm not all that worried about it. I think Turner and Green and Perry are all going to see time this year, and I think they're going to fill in. So I think Andre Selden will win that nickel job as Michigan starter as a freshman, and I think he'll perform admirably in that role. But opposite Gray, I think it's going to be quite a bit of a rotation, and I think the guys are going to perform just fine.
Yep, I'm with you there. Franz Wagner wonders if the Fort staff did a remake of the Hangover movie. Who's Phil? Who's Stu? Who's Alan? And who's Doug? I'll just say I'm probably Phil. I think I'm a kind of a Bradley Cooper lookalike, so I'll go with Phil.
Did you just compare yourself to Bradley Cooper?
I did.
See, you're more of an Alan in my book, kind of the goofy, kind of happy-go-lucky guy. Honestly, I think Ballas could fill that Allen role pretty well, too. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed at times. Comes across as a little not all there at times, kind of like Allen does. I'm thinking I'm more I was actually thinking Phil for myself as well, or Stu for that matter. I'm kind of the level-headed guy of the group. So, but, yeah, I think you and Ballas are kind of fit that Allen mold. And I think EJ could fill Phil or Stu role as well, kind of the veteran of the group, if you will. But man, comparing yourself to Bradley Cooper, you think pretty highly of yourself, it sounds like.
Of course. Well, so if you're Stu, though, then you end up marrying a stripper. So
when you put it that way, I mean, that makes a lot more sense.
There you go. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I'd like to see some Fort members weigh in on that. N8 Wildy back again with the question. You get to script the first 5 plays on offense. What are they? I haven't thought about this, but he says, for example, pass to Bell on a crossing route. Second play, off tackle right to Charbonnet. He stopped at 2. Sure, I'm going to go screen pass to Giles Jackson, play 1. Probably picks up 7 yards. I'll go an off tackle to Charbonnet. Then I'm going to go a deep ball to somebody. I don't know, a couple guys running deep routes. You hope that hits. Maybe a run on the next play. And then the play after that, yeah, I would get Ronnie Bell in a little bit of a crossing pattern, see if he can get out in space and run once after he catches it. What are your first 5 plays if you had to script it? And that was just right off the top of my head.
Man, I've always been against scripting plays. I hate it when offensive coordinators talk about how they script the first series or two. I think that you need to adjust your offense to how the game is going and what your guys are doing well. So with that being said, I think that the first play should be a play action and then a deep ball. I think you take your shot right off the bat. I don't really care who it's to, whether that's Ronnie Bell downfield or Cornelius Johnson as a big target. I think that that would be the perfect play to start the season with. If it hits, man, you give your team a lot of momentum for the rest of that game. And if it doesn't, you're sitting in a 2nd and 10, not all that bad of a spot. So I don't know about the first 5 plays, but that's the first play I would run at Minnesota.
Okay. All right. Going deep with Joe Milton. I mean, I don't think anyone would be shocked if we see that right away. Why not? If you got Joe Milton out there, if he's your guy, you might as well throw a deep ball with the first play of the season. Let's go to CT Blue 03. He wonders, with lack of quarterback depth, do the coaches limit how much running Milton actually does? I hope not. You got to do what works. And then, of course you're not going to run him like 20 times a game. And he's not like any sort of great runner. He's not Denard Robinson out there, but he's got a lot of power. He's a big quarterback that I think can pick up some of those Cam Newton yards that you're seeing New England use with him. So run him. Make sure he keeps the ball on the read option when the read is there, unlike what we saw sometimes with Shea Patterson last year. You can't worry about getting hurt. You just got to do what's best, and then you move on to the next quarterback if something does happen. You certainly don't put him in bad spots, but you can't be afraid of having Milton pick up a first down. And I don't think Joe Milton is going to be afraid to do that at all based on what we know about him.
Amen. You took the words right out of my mouth, man. You still have to run your offense. You can't play not to get hurt or afraid to get injured, because you usually do get hurt when that's the case. So if the run opportunities are there with Milton, you absolutely have to take them if that's what's best for the team. I get it. The quarterback depth is thin, but again, you just have to run your offense, man, and you can't play afraid of Milton getting hurt. I also think that they do like what they have in Cade McNamara, and that it wouldn't be a complete disaster if he had to play some meaningful snaps. So I think we're going to see Milton run some this year, but it's not going to be an extremely high amount. But I think it will be a handful of times every game where we do see him take off with his legs.
I can picture some big third downs where he's going to take off on a passing play and just get out of the pocket and pick up those third downs. And even if someone meets him at the sticks, I would have confidence that Joe Milton falls forward. I think he's more of that power runner. He's not extremely fast. He's a pocket passer. This is a pro-style quarterback type of guy, but he can run for sure. And we've seen that, with packages of him coming in and running some design runs even a couple of years ago in his redshirt year when he came in. I remember one specifically against Wisconsin. So he's going to run the football. I don't think you run him a ton, but you can't worry about him getting hurt. CT Blue 03 with another question. Haven't heard anything about Brandon Johns. Does he take the next step this year? It's a good point. No one's really brought him up. Jawan Howard fielded a question about him last week when we had him on a Zoom call with a bunch of reporters. He said that Brandon Johns is of huge importance to the team. He didn't go into a ton of detail, but does he take the next step? Man, he's kind of like we say this quite a bit, but I'll believe that when I see it, because he doesn't have a ton of offensive moves. His shot is spotty at times. I love the way, the energy he brings on defense. I love that he can switch screens. I love his rebounding. But the next step for me, for Brandon Johns, is developing some more offensive moves, being able to create his own shot a little bit. He tried to do that a little bit. His only really moves are either backing a guy down, which is fine, but he needs to develop some more post moves, or taking an open three. So if he can perfect what he does a little more, then that'll be the next step in my book. And then even develop a couple more moves of his own to get his own shot off.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, too, that practice didn't start until yesterday. So they have one practice under their belts in terms of why we haven't heard anything about him. But I think it's all mentally with Johns. I think the talent is there. He just has to put it together mentally. Whether he's able to do that this season as a junior or not remains to be seen. I think we're going to see flashes again from him like we've seen in recent years, but I don't think he'll be a starter on this team, and I don't think he'll be playing 20 minutes a game or anything like that. But again, he'll be a valuable option off the bench as he was at times last year. And again, I think he's going to give a spark to this team at times and give them some baskets. But man, it's just I'm kind of in believe it when I see it mode with him as well, because he hasn't been able to put it all together yet for an entire season. Hopefully he's able to do that this year, but it's hard to predict with a guy like that because you just don't know what to expect.
I think we are going to see him for 20 minutes a game. I think he's the backup at the 4, and I think he plays a good amount of 5, considering you only really have 2 guys at that spot. Am I wrong? I mean, I think we're going to see quite a bit of Brandon Johns, whether or not he's taking that next step.
I think that it's going to be close to 20 minutes a game, but I think we're going to see some other guys steal his minutes as well, because when he gets in those slumps like he got in last year, it's just hard to have a guy like that on the court who's not playing with confidence and who's not doing many things right at times. That's not a shot on the kid, because I want to see him succeed, but at the same time, you have to play with confidence and consistently, and I don't know if he's ready to do that at a high level yet.
All right, that's fair. N8 Wildy with another question. Austin versus Clayton in a tailgate battle. Who would throw the better tailgate for us Fortsters, and why? You can start on this one. Who would throw the better tailgate, you or me? I have a feeling you're going to say you, and I'm going to say me.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that I would throw the better tailgate. I would have basically everything that you can think of at a tailgate, whether it's food or beer or beanbag, or heck, I would bring a ping pong table to my tailgate, and I think that would be the talk of the entire Michigan Stadium golf course or wherever we're tailgating. I think that over 100 people would show up and want to play. So I think that our tailgate would be the talk of the town, and I don't know how you top having a ping pong table at your tailgate, so I would love to hear what your rebuttal is for this one.
Yeah, ping pong table's tough to beat. I'd play cornhole. I'd be grilling. I'd have the cooler fully stocked. Obviously we'd be working the game, so we wouldn't be able to partake. We'd have a couple Cokes, maybe the water, maybe a Gatorade, but I'd have the cooler stocked for everybody else. I'm a master on the grill here and there when I want to be. Other times I just like to relax. But a lot of cornhole, and yeah, I mean, I'd probably hold my own in ping pong too if we had a table there. So I don't know. What do you think?
That didn't sound very convincing. A few water, Coke. I mean, I get it. You got to have your H2O, but man, where's the excitement? I think that famous people would be showing up at our tailgate, past alums, looking to play and whatnot. I got a few connections that people I've tailgated with. So, man, I think if we put our heads together and came up with one big tailgate, I think that's something that we could legitimately do in the future, and I think would be an awesome idea before a game.
I think we have to do it once tailgating returns next year. We definitely need to have a Fort tailgate and get everybody together, including N8 Wildy. We thank him for the question. Yeah, I think it'd be a toss-up between us two throwing a tailgate. But Coach Jim for UM is wondering, do you recommend Coach Harbaugh wears the hoodie sweatshirt like last year or his classic crew neck Block M sweater for games this season? And then he said he wonders how the offense should allocate carries between Charbonnet, Haskins, Evans, and Corum. Who in order should get the most to least? So we'll start with the Jim Harbaugh look this year. Yeah, he did go with the hoodie more last year. I think it's 2020. I think that, a lot of us have been, kind of staying inside, and, there's not that many places to go, unfortunately. So I think hoodies are huge this year. Everyone just kind of relaxing. Go with the hoodie again, Jim, this year.
Man, we're in disagreement on this one. I was not a big fan of the hoodie. I'm all for his classic crew neck look with the Maize Block M and the Jumpman logo on the shirt and nothing else. I think that's the way to go. I think it's an iconic look for him, and I think it's the best look in college football in terms of what college football coaches wear. So I hope he rocks that more often than not this year.
All right, that's fair. Yeah, I'd like to see it go back. I mean, I think that's a good point. But, in terms of comfort, just go with the hoodie if you want to. But I'd love to see the old look back there for Jim as well. We'll see what he comes out with. He's going to have a mask, too. I wonder what kind of mask he's going to wear. Is he going to wear, like, one of the Andy Reid ones or what that fogs up and stuff? So we'll see on that. How should the offense allocate the carries? I'm going to go Charbonnet. I mean, this is just going to be, like, the obvious answer. I'm going to go Charbonnet, Haskins, Evans, and then Corum, but I could see Evans being in that 2 spot, and I could see either Haskins or Charbonnet being in that 1 spot or the 3 spot. So it's going to be interesting with those top three. I think Corum will definitely be fourth, though. But if you saw that hype video Michigan football posted yesterday, Corum looked pretty good and pretty athletic out there running the ball in practice.
Yeah, this might be kind of a boring answer, but I think that in terms of who gets the most carries in the second most should be whoever earns it in practice, whoever's playing the best. I think that will be Charbonnet. I think he'll lead this offense in carries, but it's really hard to predict who's going to get the next most. After that, Haskins would be my pick for that second pick, and then Chris Evans, and then I think Blake Corum will be kind of in a change of pace role at times, but man, a lot of these guys are interchangeable. I could see those first three names I mentioned really being interchangeable in this offense and getting a similar amount of carries. And then again, Corum, I think, has a clear fourth, but all four guys are going to get carries and all four are going to play a role in this offense here this season.
Definitely. GR Wolverine 21 back with a question. Basketball season now around the corner. Who wins a 3-point contest between Austin and Clay? I'm going to go with me. I mean, I've always been known as a sharpshooter. There's been comparisons to a Nick Stauskas. There's been comparisons to a Duncan Robinson back in my day. I started out an 8th grade game going 5 for 5 from deep, finished that game hitting 7 threes, 27 points, not a big deal. And then JV basketball, I was kind of an off-the-bench shooting specialist. So I'm going to go with myself on this one, and frankly, I don't know if it's close.
I'm glad that you have confidence in yourself, but let's not get carried away here. Let's not forget that in 6th grade, I was the regional state free throw champion. And actually,
free throws. Those are free throws.
Let me finish. Ever since then, I've started shooting my free throws from the 3-point line just to give myself a bigger challenge. So I have become a marksman at 3. You mentioned the Nick Stauskas comparisons, but I've actually heard more people refer to me as a Nick Stauskas lookalike than you. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I've been clocked making 70 out of 90 before. If my math is correct, that's only 20 misses. So, man, we got to settle this once and for all because we've both talked a lot of trash in this regard. And, again, we just have to settle this and see who's best. And, honestly, if we had a competition, I don't think it would be close.
Anytime, anywhere. Just let me know when, and I will be there, and I will beat you in a 3-point contest, let's be honest. I don't think it's close, like I said.
I don't think that'll be the case, and I think we have to have Ballas there as well because he claims that he would perform pretty well in this, but I don't think he would even make 20% of his threes.
Wow. Taking shots at CB there.
I'm just telling it like it is and being real about it.
There we go. All right, Blue Droid 3. I'm dying to know if Chris Hinton is going to become a superstar this year. What do you guys think? He certainly passes the first off the bus test. He does. He looks like the real deal. I think he's going to be better. I don't know about superstar, but I think down the road, maybe in his junior season, he could be something like that. I think he played a little bit high at times last year, but he did come on as the season went on. So I'm excited about Chris Hinton. I think he's an X factor. If he takes over that 3-tech spot and becomes, anything close to dominant there, and maybe dominance even a stretch. Like I said, he's not going to be a superstar, but if he can play really, really productive snaps there as the starting 3 technique, you have Carlo Kemp in the interior as well at nose guard. You're talking about an incredible defensive line. Now, if Chris Hinton isn't that, if he is kind of more of what we saw last year, a younger player who's still figuring things out, then I think this Michigan defensive line has a little bit of cause for concern. But I know the depth is a little better there than last year. But I'm going to go with Chris Hinton being a very, very effective player inside for Michigan. I don't know about superstar. We'll wait and see on that.
I agree. I don't think he'll be a superstar this season as a sophomore, but that's really not saying much because he is still a very young and primarily inexperienced player. But this kid was a 5-star out of high school, the number 15 overall player in the country. So I do think that he'll be very valuable and a productive part of this Michigan defensive line at that tackle spot alongside Carlo Kemp. He's going to be one of the most important aspects on this Michigan defense. He doesn't have to be a superstar quite yet in 2020, but as long as he serves his role well and kind of as an anchor or a plug in the middle of that Michigan defense, I think that would go a long way toward the success of this defense overall. And then in 2021, I think is when we'll really expect him to take that next step and turn into that dominant defensive tackle.
I agree. I think it's going to be, but this is a huge year for him. And again, like we both said, a lot is riding on his production. If he's good, then this defense is going to take a huge leap forward, especially on the interior there. Let's go to P. Doggy. What are Austin and Clayton's favorite fall activities outside of football? It's tough to say. I mean, football kind of drives the whole fall for me. I'm gonna go with some golf in the fall. There's nothing like being outside, seeing the foliage, and just being out in that nature when you have a little bit of time to maybe get 9 holes in. I feel like fall isn't really an 18 holes type of season because everything's so busy with football. But I'm gonna go with playing some golf. I know, Austin, you had a Facebook post the other day. Just tell me about that, because a lot of pumpkins, a lot of harvest type stuff going on there. I don't know if that really explains it, but some pretty cool stuff there.
Yeah, I don't think many people know this about me, but I'm a big pumpkins and gourds guy. I grow a bunch of my own every year. We grew over 400 gourds this year. So it's really fun, picking them all and setting them all up. I'm big into fall displays. The bigger, the better, man. You need corn, you need pumpkins, you need gourds, you need straw bales. So I had the whole 9 yards set up, and it looks really cool. So it just goes hand in hand with Michigan football and the fall foliage every single year. Color tours are another big part of it. I love going on color tours. Took an awesome one in 2016, the week of the Michigan State game, in late October when we were at our peak. So fall is by far my favorite time of year, and the reasons that I just mentioned are the primary reasons why.
It's the best. And once we have Big Ten football back, it's going to be even better. 9 days away. We'll go with this last question, and then we will hopefully get to some of these next week because there's a few we missed, but we're on a bit of a time crunch here. So Dr. Corona, I was wondering, over, under, or push coaches here 3 years after this season: Harbaugh, Brown, Gaddis, and Warner. I'll go Harbaugh with the over. I'll go Don Brown under, just because he is up there in age and possibly, his name's been in there for head coaching jobs at times. Also, there's a bit of heat on him right now. Josh Gaddis, I'll go with under. I think he's in line if he has a couple more productive seasons as the OC to get a head coaching job. I'll go Warner with the over. He just feels like he's really settling into this position. He's recruiting well on the offensive line, and he's developing the hell out of these offensive linemen. So I'm going to go with Harbaugh and Warner on the over, Brown and Gaddis on the under. But who knows? I mean, both Brown and Gaddis, I think, love being here at Michigan.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to predict with some of these coaches, but to me, Harbaugh taking the over on 3 years is an easy one. I think he's going to be here for a long time. Don Brown could go either way. I think it's going to be right about 3 years, but I'll take the under on him. Josh Gaddis, I'll definitely take the under. I think he's in line for a head coaching job in the near future. And Ed Warner, I'm going to take the over. I think that he's doing an excellent job, loves it here, and I think he's going to stick around for quite a few more years yet.
Yep, so you just copied my entire picks, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. All right, so let's get to our college football picks quickly. I was looking forward to LSU, Florida. That game got postponed due to some positive testing, but we got some SEC games here to pick. There's really nothing outside the SEC that interests me this week, but a really good nightcap, and we'll talk about that at the end. So Tennessee versus Kentucky. Kentucky is 6-point underdogs, I believe. Did I write that down correctly? So, but I'm going to go Tennessee to cover this one. I said last week, prove it to me, Tennessee. They didn't. They lost to Georgia. But I think Kentucky has really been a disappointment this year at 1-2.
Yeah, I think Tennessee covers as well. Unfortunately, I think Jeremy Pruitt has them going in the right direction. That Georgia game was a lot closer last week than that 44-21 final score indicated. Tennessee was still leading that game in the third quarter, so I've got Tennessee covering in Knoxville this weekend.
Yep. Agree with you there. Auburn at South Carolina. South Carolina 3-point underdogs at home. Give me Auburn. Give me Bo Nix at quarterback. I haven't been overly impressed with Auburn either, but I'm going to go with them. I'm not really believing the South Carolina hype. I know they've been close in some games and they won one, but I'm going to go with Auburn here. A 2-1 team with a good quarterback. I'll go with them on the road with not many fans there.
South Carolina wins outright. This Auburn has not been good this year. Georgia handled them, and Auburn should have lost to Arkansas last week at home. So this Auburn team is not very good. South Carolina with Colin Hill at quarterback, Kevin Harris in that ground game. They destroyed Vanderbilt last week, 41-7. I know that may not seem all that impressive, but Texas A&M really struggled with Vanderbilt, and LSU let them hang around for a while as well. So South Carolina's got momentum right now, and they get it done this weekend over Auburn.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, the Arkansas got screwed. That was a backwards pass on that spike. I cannot believe they allowed that and called that incomplete. Ole Miss and Arkansas. So here we go with Arkansas. Arkansas is 1.5-point dogs at home to Ole Miss. I'm going to go Ole Miss here, riding the Lane train. That offense is fun to watch. But Arkansas has been the biggest surprise, I think, in college football this year.
Yeah, I'm going Arkansas. I've been very impressed with what Sam Pittman has done with this program. Like I said, they should have won at Auburn, and they kept it very close with Georgia. So I'm going Arkansas outright. Felipe Franks at quarterback. It's amazing to me how quickly Sam Pittman has turned this thing around.
Texas A&M at Mississippi State. Mississippi State 6.5-point underdogs at home. Give me A&M riding the high after a big win over Florida. I thought Florida would win that game, but A&M finally got a big win that they were searching for here under Jimbo Fisher. I think they keep it going. Mississippi State, how did that air raid offense only score 2 points? Well, I mean, the offense didn't score 2 points, but how did Mississippi State only score 2 points last week? They look like a disaster after beating LSU, who's not that good, and I've said that all year long.
Yeah, I'm going Texas A&M outright. I think that Mississippi State win over LSU a few weeks ago was a bit of a fluke in terms of LSU not being very good. So Texas A&M outright, even though the game is in Starkville. They had that big win over Florida last week, and I think they're going to keep that momentum going.
And then the game of the week, number 2, Alabama, hosting number 3, Georgia. 4-point favorites, Alabama at home. No Nick Saban. He's going to coach maybe virtually. I bet they're going to throw him on an iPad and have him segue around on the sideline. So that's going to be interesting to see how he does that. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but he was apparently coaching practice through a Zoom call yesterday after he was sent home after his positive corona test. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs to win this game. They're the only team in the SEC that's proven they have a defense. Alabama's defense has been no good so far in this one. So give me Georgia to win this game in Tuscaloosa. Why not?
Yeah, I'm going to go Alabama straight up, and this is a really hard one. I think it's a toss-up. I could see it going either way. I really wouldn't be that surprised if Georgia wins. But, man, I got Alabama in a tight one. I don't really have a good reason as to why. Their defense has not been good. They gave up over 600 yards last week to Ole Miss. But they're still Alabama. The game is at Alabama, so I'm going to pick them to win by 3 or 7 points in a tight one.
Okay, I got Georgia, but my confidence level is at like a 2 out of 10 right now because, like you said, they are Alabama. But that is our show. Next week, we're going to have Big Ten games to pick. Next week, we're going to have a game to preview Michigan and Minnesota. We're only 9 days away. Next week when we record, we'll be 2 days away, so that'll be pretty surreal at that point. So we'll make our pick on the Michigan game and other Big Ten games, other games around the country. We'll get to some of those mailbag questions that we missed, but remember to head over to thewolverine.com, put in that promo code BLUE60. You get 2 months of our premium content for free. Make sure to rate us 5 stars and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at The Wolverine Mag. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Wolverine Magazine. And subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/The Wolverine Video. Hit that subscribe button. We'll talk to everybody next week. It will be game week. Let's go.